How's it going, Kashia? This is a video that I want to explain briefly the systematic UI development of this front-end coding challenge. And also to illustrate is the demo. And the first part of this video, it'll be more interactive. So we're gonna show is each one of those components visually and explain is the process that I went through. And then on the last part of the video, it get a little bit more technical. So I'm gonna inspect each one of the commit that I made to make this happen. So first, what I did is to define is what'll be is the series of components that I need to create in order to build this task manager. So what will be the composition of here? So the first thing first, or first thing first is to, well, define the layout. So how the things is gonna look like. And from there is I going to define is the data layer. So the approach here, because this is a project from scratch, it is more like a bottom up rather than a top down approach, aka. So we're starting from a blank state. So we first focus on the UI and then the data layer. This is great for new particularly projects, but for any project that you inherit or for any system that you have to extend functionalities or bug fix, which is known as the bottom up approach. So it's preferred to define is the data layer first, and then what will be the data that you want to show to the users, right? So what in any case, and then is defining is the theme context as a way to provide now is these nice effects of light and dark mode. The priority chip component, which is something that I'm going to explain that later. And let me actually do that in fact by going into this and explain that, right? So this is part of the chip, the priority chip component, and then define now the task input component, as you can see here. So it is this, well, the input followed by the priority here. And in this video, I'm just checking out is that each one of those batches work as expected, as well as the task if that works. This is an empty task, all right? Next is to look at the dark mode and see how that works, all right? And then now adding is the, as I mentioned here, the task item, how it's going to look like. Hey, this is have now a checkbox. Some here is defining is the priority of this task, the text, and some fancy date of how when the time ago from this task, as well as the delete button. Also checking is the dark mode, right? And here is now adding is this, as I mentioned here, the filter tabs that is going to show is, well, what are the completed and pending or show all the tasks here. Also showing is the dark mode. Here I'm adding is the priority filtering, right? The priority filter drop down using is a built-in component that have from React Native, right? Yes, dark mode as well. And then now is the counter of the pending task and the total task. Again, this is now the way of how by composing all of this UI leads to finally is this particular demo here. So this is a video that you can take wherever you want, all right? But in fact, I do want to do is a live video right now. And let's get into this. There you got it. Here it is. Here's the simulator. There's a couple assumptions here that I'm also I'm describing in the here in the docs, right? So no routing required, so therefore no app folder. And following is the source folder just for convention. Design might not be according to the UI system design guidelines for iOS or Android. And for this demo, app is in a fresh start. So we are not doing any fetch or fetching data from any server. So this is part of the assumption. Now, as I open up here, right? And if for some reason I do want to add now is the high priority, it'll be breakfast, right? As you can see, the layout changed a little bit. It's not the same in terms of the search input as we have in other buttons, but the functionality remains, right? So we have now this nice little animation that was added. And then let me say, hey, well, next will be lunch. I can set the priority here, add that to the lunch, and then let's say, hey, do you wanna, after that, do the dinner, right? And there you got it. So here I can also is show by completed or pending, right? And if I want, for example, is to toggle is lunch, it means that I hit I miss breakfast. Okay, if I now go into the filtering, you say, hey, show me the completed or show me the pending, right? Or filtering by priority and say, hey, show me the pending for high priority, right? And it show you only is the high priority here. So if you for some reason add it to this, it will disappear, and you may wonder why is that? Well, because now it is completed. Okay. If we want to go back and show all of them, and somehow remove the middle, right? It show you this alert, which is a built-in component from React Native, and there you got it. Right. You can also toggle here dark and light mode. As you can see here, there's a particular issue from the status bar, but this is specific to Expo Go. Allegedly, you can take a look at here in the related React Native issue. For native build, it actually worked as expected. So this is it, at least for this demo here. Now, if we go back and get into the technical aspect here, so first thing first is the initial setup, which is made that by, let me actually make a quick pause here. There you go. Okay. So here's when the technical aspect kicks in for this video. So here, this is the initial setup. This is something that is by de facto provided by Expo. I'm using is now npmx as a way to download that library in a temporal folders, find the binary for the Expo to install now the dependency for these projects, and then remove that library. But we already have is the folder structure for the Expo, right? So here I'm just adding is just some alias with this. add theme in priority chip components. This is where I'm defining here is using context for theme rather than defining it with the substand. More like because I want to align as much as possible to what the React is doing, at least for these small applications. This is why I'm using here the context rather than a state management library like Substand. Because of that, this is a small application, and we want us to handle is a small state here, which is the theme, right? Okay. If, for example, you already have a huge application, let's say you're working for an airline company or a bank institution that I have experience with, well, you might like to consider to go with Redux because you might have a huge state that you want to update and you need to have certainty of what change happens. Following is the Flux architecture. So in any case, so yeah, this is how we define is our here the priority chip, right? As well as the theme here. I'm defining here as an X. I must admit that I use Claude Code to help me to systematically define this task manager. That's why we have is Xcode. I'll prefer to use HSL because it's more intuitive for developers and design to actually understand how color works, the color hue. Again, that goes beyond the scope of today's video. And then defining is now is the context as well as the provider here, right? So then is defining is these task input components, right? I'm using is these components that already come from the React Native, all right? So for example, the text input, right? That it comes from the React Native, right? I'm using is the text input, the touchable opacity rather than a bottom, okay? Because this is behave more consistent across different platforms, and the alert as well, right? The same for add filter tabs. Here what I'm doing is, well, defining is a component. I'm using is now map here rather than a the filter component that comes with React Native, because this is a small set of elements. That's what I'm doing here in using map here, right? So if we go now to the priority filter component, which is it involves more logic here. Again, I'm using here is the map, as you can see here, to render priorities, because this is a small data set. Well, that's what I'm doing here. That's what I'm using is that here, right? And then now some of the task counter, this actually changed later on. It just was a test. And then the task manager component that is responsible is to handle is logic, as you can see here, is to handle the logic of rendering the task, detecting what filter status you want to go with, whether it is all pending and completed. The same for filter priority, and then the refreshing here. So you can actually swipe down to the components, right? And it is interesting because I am using as a crypto to dynamically generate UI ID. This is the way how now you can generate unique ID in the front end if you need to. And this is also something that is widely recommended or broadly recommended for the community in JavaScript, right? Instead of using now method random that is not deterministic, all right? Here with the crypto, by giving you a 16 character long string, well, it's using now a particular algorithm to generate that, but the probability to generate the same random string is astronomically low. Then you have now the safe area context to render context within the boundaries. All right, as you can see here is to actually render these elements here in these particular boundaries as the mouse I'm showing here, right? And then add the theme header, which is, well, this component that actually is showing is these elements. So here I'm using is the Expo vectors icons that come from when you install Expo Go. So you got it, this, right? Next, oh, I think, let me actually move this a little bit. This a little bit. There you got it. Oh, my bad. Sorry. Sorry that you can't actually read that. Just to make a quick recap of what I did. Well, this is the initial setup, dice config, the theme context. You can take a look at the code when you see that fit. This is detecting now is this known issue with the status bar. All right. We also add persistent data using the async storage here. So we install that and we now store all of the keys to store data locally in a constant file, right? So here we're defining is the use effect to actually is schedule a load task when the components gets rendered in the task manager screen. And any time that the task changes, let's go to now is run the save task here, right? But I want to bring the attention here to another thing that is quite interesting, and that is the animations, because animations is a huge world in itself. Here I'm using is the built-in layout animation from React Native just to illustrate how you can now is render elements from one state to another state, and this work is for flat list items. Okay, so this is just to mention a brief overview of the task manager, the systematic UI development, the demo, and the technical aspect of it. So, well, that'll be all for this video. Take care. Bye-bye.